The amphitheater stretched wide enough to hold 3,000 cadets, and every seat was filled. Samira Chen sat in the middle section, her plain gray uniform standing out among the elaborate military dress of alien species she had only read about in files. To her left sat a Crithian, whose chest bore ceremonial scars that told of ancestral battles. To her right, a Kalahari cadet wore armor pieces that had been passed down through 15 generations of warriors. The commandant stood on the central stage, his massive form casting shadows across the first 10 rows. He was Crithian, like many of the instructors here, and his voice carried the weight of authority that came from leading soldiers for half a century. Behind him, holographic displays showed the faces of legendary graduates, warriors who had gone on to command fleets and defend entire star systems. The Zenith Military Academy has stood for 10,000 years, the commandant said, his words translating simultaneously into hundreds of languages through neural implants. We train the finest soldiers in the galaxy. You sit here because your species has proven itself in battle. You sit here because warrior blood flows through your veins. Samira listened carefully, her fingers tapping a quiet rhythm against her knee. She had heard variations of this speech before, during the application process, during the entrance exams, during every step that had brought her from Earth to this orbital station circling the galactic core. Every time the message was the same. Warriors, battle heritage, proud martial traditions, the commandant continued, listing the great warrior races. The Vraxians, who bred their children in combat nurseries and taught them to fight before they could speak full sentences. The Kalahari, whose entire civilization was structured around military service and honor duels. The Thexians, the Vorath, the Ixtal, each name came with stories of glorious battles and ancient warrior codes. You are here because you come from cultures that understand sacrifice. The commandant said, you are here because war is not foreign to you. It is your heritage. The amphitheater erupted in cheers. Cadets stood raising fists or appendages or whatever their species used to show approval. War cries echoed off the curved walls. Samira remained seated, watching the display with calm eyes. When the noise died down, the commandant opened the floor to questions. Dozens of hands and claws and tentacles shot into the air. The commandant pointed to a Vraxian in the front section. A massive cadet whose shoulders were broader than some species stood tall. The Vraxian stood, his voice booming even without amplification. Commandant, I am Thornek, son of Thornak, grandson of Thornex. My line has produced warriors for 50 generations. I have a question about the new admissions. The commandant nodded. Speak freely, Cadet Thornek. I notice we have a human among us this year, Thornek said, and Samira felt thousands of eyes turn toward her section. I mean no disrespect, but I must ask. Why was Earth admitted to this academy? They have no warrior caste, no mandatory military service, no battle hymns or ancestral weapons. They barely explored their own star system before making contact with the rest of us. What martial tradition do they bring? Murmurs rippled through the amphitheater. Samira felt the Crithian beside her shift uncomfortably, as if being near her might be contagious. She kept her expression neutral, her breathing steady. She had expected this question. It had been asked during her interviews, during medical examinations, during every casual conversation she had attempted since arriving. The commandant seemed to consider his response carefully. Earth was admitted because they met the entrance requirements like every other species represented here. But Commandant, another voice called out, a Kalahari this time. Every species here has bred soldiers for thousands of years. Our children train from birth. Wars in our blood, our culture, our very genetic code. Humans have no such tradition. How can they possibly produce soldiers worthy of Zenith? The amphitheater buzzed with agreement. Samira saw cadets nodding, heard whispered conversations in languages her implant struggled to translate. She recognized the tone, though. Doubt. Dismissal. The assumption that she was here because of politics or quotas or some diplomatic arrangement. She stood up. The movement was simple, unhurried. She did not raise her voice or make any dramatic gesture. She simply rose from her seat and looked down at Thornek, then across at the Kalahari who had spoken, then up at the commandant. You asked why Earth breeds no soldiers, Samira said, her voice clear and steady. The answer is simple. We don't breed them. We don't need to. The amphitheater fell silent. Even the commandant seemed surprised that she had spoken without being called upon. You're looking at one, Samira continued, meeting Thornek's gaze without flinching. I'm a soldier. I chose to be here. Every human who serves makes that choice. We don't do it because our ancestors did it or because society demands it or because we were bred for it. We do it because it needs to be done. For a moment, nothing happened. Then someone laughed. The sound was quickly picked up by others until half the amphitheater was laughing. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind that came from hearing something absurd. The idea that choice could be stronger than breeding, that will could match instinct. Thornek was not laughing. He stared at Samira with something between curiosity and pity. You truly believe you can match warriors who were born for this? Trained from infancy? I guess we'll find out, Samira said and sat back down. The commandant raised a hand, silencing the laughter. His expression was unreadable. An interesting perspective, Cadet Chen. You will have ample opportunity to prove your words. In fact, all of you will. The first trial begins at dawn. The mood in the amphitheater shifted immediately. The first trial was legendary. Every graduate spoke of it, usually with a mixture of pride and trauma. It was the moment when idealistic new cadets learned what Zenith really meant. You will be divided into teams of 5, the commandant explained. The teams are random, assigned by the Academy's computer system to ensure diverse skill sets and backgrounds. You will be dropped into the Keswick training grounds, a hostile environment with simulated combat scenarios. Your objectives are threefold. Secure 3 resource caches scattered across the terrain, extract a wounded asset from a hot zone, and reach the extraction point within 48 hours. Holographic displays showed images of the Keswick grounds, a nightmare landscape of jagged rock formations, dense forests that could hide a dozen ambushes, and open killing fields where automated defense systems waited. You will face environmental hazards, automated opposition, and competition from other teams, the commandant said. Only 3 teams will receive passing marks. The rest will be recycled into remedial training or dismissed from the academy entirely. This is your first real test. Many of you will fail. The amphitheater was dead quiet now. Samira studied the terrain displays, her mind already working through possible approaches and tactics. She noticed details others might miss. The way certain rock formations would channel movement, how the forest density varied in patterns that suggested programmed patrol routes for the automated systems. Team assignments will be posted in 1 hour, the commandant said. You are dismissed. Get whatever rest you can. Dawn comes early, and the Keswick grounds do not forgive mistakes. Cadets began filing out, many already forming small groups with members of their own species. Seeking comfort in the familiar before the trial, Samira remained seated, still studying the terrain displays until they flickered off. She finally stood and made her way down the steps. As she reached the exit, she nearly collided with Thornek. The Vraxian looked down at her, his expression serious. I hope for your sake that you are placed on a strong team, human, he said. You will need all the help you can get. I hope I'm on your team, Samira replied. You'll learn something. Thornek snorted and walked away. Samira headed to the barracks, her mind already preparing for the trial ahead. She had not come this far to fail because aliens thought humans were too soft, too unmilitary, too civilized to be real soldiers. Tomorrow, she would show them what humans really were. The transport dropped them from 3,000 meters without warning. Samira felt her stomach lurch as the floor vanished, and suddenly she was falling through cold air. The Keswick grounds rushing up to meet her. Around her, 4 other shapes tumbled through the sky, their descent controlled by Academy-issued grav chutes that would slow them at the last possible moment. The ground came fast. Samira tucked and rolled as she hit, the grav chute dying the instant her boots touched soil. She came up in a crouch, automatically scanning her surroundings. Dense forest to the north, rocky outcroppings to the east, open ground to the south and west, exposed vulnerable. Team 7, sound off? A voice barked. Thornek. Of course it was Thornek. Samira moved toward the voice, keeping low. She found the Vraxian standing fully upright in a small clearing, making no attempt at concealment. 2 other cadets were already with him, a Thexian whose name was Krell and a Vorath called Hexix. The 5th member appeared moments later, an Orvathi medic named Silas who looked terrified. I am Thornek, the Vraxian announced, as if they did not all know this already. I will command this team. Krell, you will take point. Hexix, rear guard. Silas, stay in the middle. Human, you will scout ahead but not engage anything without my orders. Samira said nothing. She simply pulled up the tactical display on her wrist unit, studying the terrain map and the locations of the 3 resource caches they needed to secure. The first was 2 kilometers north in the forest. The second was 5 kilometers northeast in the Rocky Highlands. The third was 4 kilometers south in what the map labeled as a contested zone. The first cache is close, Thornek said, studying his own display. We move fast, secure it before other teams can reach it. Krell, lead us in. Standard advance formation. Krell nodded and started north at a steady jog. The Thexian moved with confidence, his natural armor plates making him look like a walking tank. Thornek followed close behind, with Silas in the middle looking miserable and Hexix covering the rear. Samira moved with them but kept her position slightly off to the side, her eyes constantly scanning. The forest was dense and dark, the canopy blocking most of the light. Samira could hear movement in the trees, probably small animals or simulated wildlife meant to mask the sound of real threats. Krell crashed through the underbrush like he was invincible, which, given his armor, he nearly was. They reached the first cache in 20 minutes. It was a reinforced container in a small clearing, marked with a holographic beacon that pulsed green. Too easy, Samira thought. This was supposed to be a trial, but the cache just sat there unguarded and obvious. Secure it, Thornek ordered. Krell moved forward and placed his hand on the container. The beacon changed from green to blue, indicating Team 7 had claimed it. Inside were medical supplies, extra rations, and 1 advanced sensor unit that would help them detect threats. Good, Thornek said. 1 down. Now we move to the second cache. Same formation. They headed northeast, climbing into the rocky terrain. The going was slower here, the ground uneven and treacherous. Samira noticed something as they moved. The automated defense systems were supposed to be active, but they had not encountered a single one. No drones, no turrets, no proximity sensors. Either they had been incredibly lucky, or something was wrong with their route. She moved up beside Thornek. We should consider an alternate approach to the second cache. This terrain funnels us into predictable paths. Thornek glanced at her. We are using the most direct route. Speed is essential. Speed doesn't help if we walk into an ambush. You think I do not know tactics, human? My ancestors were fighting battles when your species still lived in caves. Samira said nothing more. There was no point arguing with someone who treated warfare like inherited property. She dropped back, keeping her eyes on the terrain. She noticed patterns now. Places where the rocks formed natural choke points, areas where defenders could position themselves with overlapping fields of fire. They were 200 meters from the second cache when the ambush happened. 3 automated turrets rose from concealed positions in the rocks. They locked onto the team instantly, firing training rounds that hit with enough force to knock a cadet down and register as simulated wounds. Krell took 2 rounds to the chest and went down hard. Hexix returned fire, but the turrets were in protected positions, angles that made direct assault nearly impossible. Advance and suppress. Thornek roared, charging forward. It was exactly the wrong thing to do. Samira saw it immediately. The turrets were positioned to create a kill zone. Charging them meant running into concentrated fire with no cover. Thornek made it 10 meters before taking multiple hits. His armor absorbed some, but the cumulative damage dropped him to 1 knee. Fall back, Samira shouted. For once the team listened. They retreated down the slope, dragging Krell with them. The turrets did not pursue, programmed to defend the cache rather than hunt targets. They took shelter behind a large boulder. Krell was marked as critically wounded, his armor showing red indicators. Thornek was marked as injured but mobile. Silas immediately began applying medical protocols, which in the simulation meant scanning them and administering digital healing that would reduce their penalty scores. We need a new approach, Samira said. Thornek's expression was dark. Those turrets have overlapping fields of fire. There is no way around them without being exposed. There's always a way around, Samira said. She pulled up her tactical display and studied the terrain more carefully. The turrets were positioned well, but they were still machines. They followed programmed response patterns. And machines could be tricked, she explained her plan. Use the forest to their left to approach from an angle the turrets could not easily cover. Send Hexix up the right side with a reflective panel from their equipment, creating a false thermal signature to draw fire. While the turrets were distracted, Samira would advance along a narrow ravine that was probably too tight for the turrets to track properly, and disable them with an electromagnetic pulse grenade from their supplies. That is not how warriors fight, Thornek said. We face our enemies directly. And your direct approach got 2 team members wounded, Samira replied. I'm not trying to disrespect your traditions. I'm trying to complete the mission. Thornek looked at the cache, then at Krell, who was still marked as critical, then back at Samira. She could see the war in his expression, pride versus pragmatism. Fine, he said finally. We try your way, but if this fails, we go back to proper tactics. They executed the plan exactly as Samira described. Hexus moved right with the reflective panel, creating enough heat signature to look like a whole team. The turrets swiveled toward him, their targeting sensors locked on the false signature. Samira used the distraction to sprint up the ravine, her boots finding purchase on loose rock. She got within 5 meters of the nearest turret before it registered her presence. It tried to rotate, but the ravine angle limited its movement. Samira threw the EMP grenade. The device detonated with a pulse of electromagnetic energy that shut down all 3 turrets simultaneously. Clear, she called. The team moved up and secured the second cache. This one contained ammunition, tactical explosives, and an enhanced communications unit. Thornek said nothing as he marked the cache as claimed, but Samira noticed he avoided meeting her eyes. They had 2 caches secured. They still needed to extract the wounded asset and reach the final cache before heading to the extraction point. By Samira's calculation, they had 34 hours remaining. Time was good, but the hardest objectives were still ahead. We should rest here for 10 minutes, Samira suggested. Let Silas finish treating the wounded markers and review our approach to the extraction target. Thornek surprised her by nodding. 10 minutes. Then we move. As the team rested, Samira noticed Thornek watching her with a different expression now. Not respect exactly, but perhaps the absence of dismissal. It was a start. What she did not notice, what none of them noticed yet, was the subtle change in their tactical displays. The safety indicators that should have shown green were flickering, occasionally dipping to yellow. The simulation was supposed to be perfectly controlled, incapable of causing real harm. But something was wrong with the system, and they were about to find out exactly how wrong. The wounded asset was supposed to be located in a crashed shuttle 6 kilometers east of their position. According to the briefing, it would be a simulated casualty that required careful extraction under fire. Standard rescue operation training. Samira checked her tactical display as they approached the coordinates and felt her stomach tighten. Something's wrong, she said. Thornek looked at his own display. The asset is where it should be. What problem do you see? The safety indicators. They're showing red in sectors that should be green. Samira pulled up the detailed view. This whole area is supposed to be locked to training parameters. Non-lethal force only. But these readings suggest active weapon systems without safety protocols. Perhaps your human eyes misread the display, Hexix suggested, though his tone was less hostile than it would have been 6 hours ago. I'm not misreading anything. Look at the energy signatures. Those are live rounds, not training ammunition. Krell examined his own scanner, his expression troubled. The human may be correct. These readings are unusual. They heard the explosion before they saw it. A massive boom echoed across the Keswick grounds from somewhere to the south. A pillar of smoke rose into the sky, thick and black. Real smoke, not simulated. That's where Team 3 was heading, Silas said, his voice tight with fear. To the third cache. Samira's communication unit crackled to life. All teams, this is command. We have a situation. The simulation has been compromised. Safety protocols are failing in multiple sectors. All teams are ordered to cease exercise activities and move to designated safe zones immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill. Move to safe zones now. The display updated, showing blue markers scattered across the terrain. Safe zones where the safety systems were still functioning. The nearest one was 3 kilometers northwest of their position. But the crash shuttle with the wounded asset was right in front of them, less than 500 meters away. We follow orders, Thornek said. We head to the safe zone. Samira was already moving toward the shuttle. There are cadets in that shuttle. If the safety protocols failed there, they're in real danger. Command ordered us to the safe zones. Command is 300,000 kilometers away. Those cadets are right there. Samira broke into a run. Human. That is a direct violation of orders. Samira did not stop. She heard cursing behind her in multiple languages. Then the sound of boots following. She glanced back and saw the entire team running after her. Even Thornek, his expression furious but his legs moving. They reached the shuttle to find it worse than Samira had expected. This was supposed to be a simple scenario, a crashed vessel with simulated damage and a casualty that needed extraction. Instead, she found a real crash. The shuttle's emergency systems had malfunctioned, bringing it down hard. Inside, she could see 3 cadets from Team 4, and they were not simulated casualties. Krell, Hex-6, secure a perimeter, Samira ordered, then caught herself. She was not in command. She looked at Thornek. The Vraxian stared at the crashed shuttle, then at Samira. Do it, Krell, Hex-6, perimeter. Silas, prepare to treat real injuries. I will help the human with extraction. They worked fast. The shuttle's hull was crumpled but not sealed. Samira and Thornek forced the damaged door open to find the 3 cadets inside in bad shape. One had a broken arm, another was unconscious with a head injury, and the third was trapped under a collapsed support beam. Silas, the unconscious one first, Samira said. Thornek, help me with this beam. They lifted together, Thornek's strength doing most of the work, but Samira's positioning making it possible. The trapped cadet, a young Kalahari, screamed as they pulled him free. His leg was badly crushed. Silas worked with frantic efficiency, his medical training overriding his fear. The head injury is serious. The leg will require surgery. We need real medical evacuation. Command said they're working on it, Thornek said. It will take time. They don't have time, Samira said. She looked at her tactical display. The safe zones were marked, but something else caught her attention. There were more red indicators appearing, a pattern spreading across the map. The compromised sectors were expanding. She zoomed out and saw it clearly. 3 separate areas where cadets were trapped in zones where the safety protocols had completely failed. The crashed shuttle was one. 2 other teams were caught in different locations, pinned down by automated systems that were now firing live ammunition. We can't just wait here, Samira said. The medics will arrive, Thornek replied. We have done what we can. Look at the map. There are 2 other teams in trouble. Team 6 is pinned in the southern valley. Team 9 is trapped near the 3rd cache. Command can't reach them in time. That is not our responsibility. We rescued these 3. Now we follow orders and move to the safe zone. Samira looked at the 3 injured cadets. She thought about the others, cadets she had sat near in the amphitheater. People who had laughed at her when she said she was a soldier. They were still people. They were still in danger. I'm going, she said. Human, do not be foolish. You will be dismissed from the academy. You will fail every objective. For what? To play hero? You asked what makes Earth soldiers, Samira said quietly. We have a saying, leave no one behind. It's not about honor or glory or following ancient codes. It's about the person next to you. Those cadets out there, they might not respect humans. They might think we don't belong here, but there's still people who need help. She checked her equipment and started moving. She made it 10 steps before Thornek's voice stopped her. If we do this, we do it properly. Not your human improvisation, but real tactics. We will need a plan. Samira turned. Thornek stood with his arms crossed, his expression still angry, but something else there too. Respect maybe, or at least the willingness to consider it. The southern valley first, Samira said, pulling up the tactical display. Team 6 is closer and their situation looks more immediately dangerous. They're taking fire from multiple automated turrets that have switched to live ammunition. The turrets are positioned here, here, and here. She traced the positions on the map. Direct assault won't work. The turrets have overlapping fields of fire and they're not operating on safety protocols anymore. We'll need to use the terrain. There's a drainage channel that runs along the eastern side of the valley. If we can reach it without being detected, we can approach to within 50 meters of the turret's blind spots. And then? Krell asked. He had joined them along with Hex-6 and Silas. Then we use what we have. Explosives from the 2nd cache. We set them on proximity fuses and send them in using the grav chutes as delivery systems. The explosions will trigger the turret's targeting sensors and hopefully overwhelm their processing. While they're distracted, Team 6 makes a run for it. That is, actually tactical, Thornek admitted, but it requires precision timing and assumes the turrets will respond as predicted. Everything in combat is an assumption. We just make the best ones we can with the information we have. Thornek was quiet for a moment. Samira could see him weighing options, balancing the warrior code he had been raised with against the reality in front of him. Finally, he nodded. Medical evacuation is inbound for these 3. We go help the others. But human, if we do this and survive, you will explain to the Commandant why we violated direct orders. Fair enough. They moved out, leaving Silas with the injured cadets. The four of them ran toward the southern valley, toward live weapons and danger that was no longer simulated. Samira felt fear, the natural human response to running toward things that could kill you. But she also felt something else. Purpose. This was what soldiers did, not because they were bred for it or because ancient traditions demanded it. They did it because someone needed to, and they were there. The valley was 5 kilometers away. Team 6 was holding position behind inadequate cover, pinned down by 3 turrets that fired continuously. By the time Samira and her team arrived, one of Team 6's members had already been hit, a real injury that left him screaming. "Time to see if your plan works, human," Thornek said. Samira smiled grimly. "It'll work. And even if it doesn't, at least we tried." They moved into position, and Samira prepared to show the galaxy what a human soldier really looked like. Samira woke to white lights and the smell of antiseptic. Her body felt heavy, disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. She tried to move and pain shot through her left side sharp enough to make her gasp. "Easy," a voice said. "You took significant damage. The medical systems are still working on you." She turned her head slowly. A Krithian medical officer stood beside her bed, checking displays that showed her vital signs in colors she did not fully understand. Beyond him she could see a medical bay with dozens of beds, many of them occupied. "How long?" Samira asked, her voice rough. 3 days. You were unconscious for most of it. The injuries were severe enough that we had to put you in medical suspension while the repair systems worked." Memories came back in fragments. The southern valley, Team 6 pinned down. The plan had worked mostly. They had used the explosives and grav chutes exactly as she had outlined, creating enough chaos to let Team 6 escape. Then they had moved to help Team 9 near the third cache. That was where things had gone wrong. The automated systems there were more sophisticated, adaptive. They had learned from the first encounter. When Samira's team tried the same approach, the systems had anticipated it and adjusted their response. The explosives had not been enough. Samira remembered making a decision. The kind of decision that seemed obvious in the moment but probably looked insane to anyone watching. She had drawn fire deliberately, running across open ground to pull the system's attention while the trapped cadets escaped. She remembered the impact, the feeling of something hitting her hard enough to lift her off her feet. After that, nothing until now. "The other cadets," she said, "Team 6 and Team 9, all survived. Your actions gave them time to reach safety before Command could shut down the compromised systems. My team? Minor injuries only. They remained in the field until all endangered cadets were secured." The medical officer made a note on his display. "You have had several visitors. They have been quite persistent." As if summoned by the words, the door opened. Thornek entered, followed by Krell and Hexix. The Vraxian looked uncomfortable in the medical bay, like he did not belong in a place that dealt with the consequences of battle, rather than the glory of it. "You are awake," Thornek said, stating the obvious. "Apparently." Samira tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The medical officer helped her adjust the bed so she could recline at an angle. "I will leave you to talk," the medical officer said, "but keep it brief. She still needs rest." When he left, an awkward silence filled the space. Thornek stood at the foot of her bed, his expression unreadable. Krell and Hexix stood behind him, equally uncomfortable. "I studied your world's military history," Thornek said finally. "While you were unconscious, I wanted to understand." Samira waited. She had learned that Thornek needed to work up to things, to approach them from angles that let him maintain dignity. "Vietnam," he continued, "a small nation against a superpower. Afghanistan, where empires went to die. Your world wars, where the outcomes were decided not by the strongest armies, but by the ones that adapted fastest. Again and again I saw the same pattern. Inferior forces defeating superior ones through methods that my people would consider dishonorable." "War isn't about honor," Samira said quietly. "It's about winning, about surviving, about making sure your people get to go home. Yes, I am beginning to understand this." Thornek moved closer. "My species breeds warriors. We have done so for thousands of years. We are stronger, faster, more aggressive than most species in the galaxy. And yet when I look at Earth's history, I see a species that nearly destroyed itself multiple times and somehow always came back stronger. Not because you were better warriors, but because you refused to accept defeat." "We're stubborn," Samira agreed. It's probably our worst quality and our best one. When you ran across that open ground to draw fire, that was not the action of someone bred for war. That was the action of someone who chose war, who understood the cost and paid it anyway. Krell spoke up, his voice deep and thoughtful. In my culture, we teach that warriors are born, not made. But watching you these past days, I wonder if we have it backward. Perhaps warriors who are made are stronger than those who are born. The door opened again. This time it was Silas, the Orvathi medic, carrying what looked like a data pad. You should see this, he said. The academy is in chaos. He activated a holographic display. News reports flooded the space above Samira's bed. Dozens of feeds from across the galaxy. The story was everywhere. Sabotage at the Zenith Military Academy. Safety systems compromised. Cadets in real danger. And at the center of it all, a human cadet who had violated orders to rescue others. They are calling you a hero, Silas said, though command is less enthusiastic. You violated direct orders. They are debating whether to dismiss you from the academy or give you a medal. Probably both, Samira said. She was not sure how she felt about being called a hero. She had just done what needed doing. That did not feel heroic. It felt like the bare minimum. There is more, Thornek said. The sabotage was traced to an anti-human extremist group. They wanted to prove that humans do not belong at Zenith. They compromised the safety systems, hoping that when things went wrong, you would fail. They wanted me to run to the safe zone like everyone else, Samira understood, to prove that humans aren't soldiers that were too soft or too scared or too civilized. Yes, instead you did the opposite. You ran toward the danger. And now the entire galaxy is watching and asking questions. The holographic displays showed debates, arguments, discussions across hundreds of worlds. Some species were outraged that Earth had been admitted to Zenith. Others were demanding to know more about human military capabilities. The Federation Council was in emergency session. Military analysts were reviewing Earth's combat history with new interest. You caused a lot of trouble. Human, Hexic said, but there was no hostility in his voice. I just wanted to help people. That, Thornek said, is what makes you dangerous. My people fight for honor. Other species fight for territory or resources or ancient grudges. But you humans, you fight for ideas, for principles. That makes you unpredictable, difficult to counter. The door opened one more time. The commandant entered, his massive frame filling the doorway. Everyone in the room immediately came to attention, or tried to in Samira's case. At ease, the commandant said. Cadet Chen, we need to talk about your future at this academy. Samira's heart sank. Here it came. The dismissal. She had known it was possible, but somehow she had hoped that doing the right thing might count for something. You violated direct orders, the commandant continued. You left your assigned area, engaged in unauthorized combat operations, and put yourself and your team at significant risk. These are serious infractions. Yes, sir. You also saved 15 cadets who would have died or been seriously injured if you had followed orders. The Academy Council has spent 3 days debating what to do with you. The commandant pulled up a display, showing the council chamber and the heated arguments that had taken place there. Samira saw representatives from dozens of species, some arguing passionately for her dismissal, others defending her actions. The vote was close, the commandant said. Very close. In the end, I cast the deciding vote. He paused, and Samira felt the weight of that pause. Her entire future balanced on whatever he said next. You are not dismissed. Instead, you are being transferred to a new program, Human Tactical Integration. You will train with other cadets, teaching them the kind of adaptability and unconventional thinking that you displayed during the crisis. We are also assigning you as permanent second-in-command to Cadet Thornek's unit. Thornek looked as surprised as Samira felt. Sir, I did not request this. You did not need to. I saw the after-action reports. You two work well together once you stopped fighting about who should lead. Thornek, you provide strength and tactical knowledge. Chen provides adaptability and creative problem-solving. Together, you are more effective than either would be alone. The commandant looked at all of them. The galaxy is changing. We face threats that do not fight by traditional rules. We need soldiers who can adapt, who can think beyond their training, who can win battles that the textbooks say are unwinnable. That is what this academy will teach going forward. And you, Cadet Chen, are going to help us learn how. He left without waiting for a response. The room was silent for a long moment. So, Samira said finally, I guess we're working together. Thornek's expression was complicated, a mixture of resignation and something that might have been respect. It appears so human. Try not to get us both killed. No promises. 6 months passed like water through stones, wearing away resistance through constant pressure. The Human Tactical Integration Program started with 12 cadets and grew to 40 within the first month. Samira found herself teaching classes on asymmetric warfare, creative problem-solving, and what the instructors called adaptive battlefield doctrine, but what she just thought of as figuring things out as you went. The academy changed around her in small ways. Training exercises included more scenarios that required unconventional solutions. The rigid formation drills were supplemented with fluid response training. Instructors began asking questions that had no single correct answer, forcing cadets to think rather than simply remember. Thornek changed too, though he would probably deny it if asked. He still charged into battle with the confidence of someone whose ancestors had conquered star systems, but now he paused first. He considered alternatives. He asked Samira what she saw that he might be missing. It was progress, even if neither of them would call it friendship. They sat together in the officers' mess 6 months to the day after the sabotage incident. The room was crowded with cadets from a dozen species, all of them preparing for graduation exercises that would determine their final rankings and first assignments. "I have been thinking," Thornek said, pushing food around his plate, "about the question I asked. In the amphitheater on our first day," Samira remembered. The question that had started everything. "Why Earth breeds no soldiers?" "I was wrong to ask it that way," Thornek continued. "Not wrong to question, but wrong in how I understood the question. I thought soldiers were made by breeding, by culture, by tradition. That strength came from bloodlines and ancient ways. And now I think strength comes from choosing to be strong, from deciding that something matters enough to fight for it. Your people do not breed warriors because you do not need to. Every human who serves makes that choice. That makes them more dangerous than any warrior born to it, because choice is stronger than instinct." A Kalahari cadet named Vexus approached their table, carrying a datapad. She was one of the cadets Samira had rescued from the crashed shuttle 6 months ago. Her leg had healed completely, though she still walked with a slight limp. "Chen, Thornek, you should see this," Vexus said, activating the datapad. The display showed a military briefing, marked as classified but apparently leaked to the entire academy within hours of its creation. A border conflict had erupted 3 systems away. The Zenith Academy was being asked to contribute a rapid response team of graduating cadets. Volunteer basis only, but those who went would receive priority assignments after graduation. "They are looking for units that work well together," Vexus said. "Mixed species teams with proven combat effectiveness." "Your unit's name came up first," Samira looked at Thornek. "Interested? The combat will be real. The risks are not simulated. We could die. That's true of any soldier's life. At least we would die doing something that matters." Thornek smiled, an expression that looked strange on his warrior's face but somehow fit perfectly. "You are starting to think like a Vraxian human." "Very well, we volunteer." Word spread quickly. By evening, 30 cadets had volunteered for the rapid response team. By the next morning, the commandant had approved 15 of them, including Samira's entire unit. They had 1 week to prepare before deployment. The final day before they shipped out, Samira found herself back in the amphitheater where this had all begun. She stood on the stage looking up at 3,000 cadets who had gathered for a special assembly. The commandant had asked her to speak. She had no idea what to say. "6 months ago I stood in these seats and someone asked why Earth breeds no soldiers," Samira began. Her voice carried through the amphitheater, amplified by the same systems that had carried the commandant's words on her first day. "I said you were looking at one. A lot of you laughed. I do not blame you. I understand why you laughed." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Every species here comes from proud warrior traditions. You were taught to fight before you could walk. You carry weapons that your ancestors carried. You follow battle codes that have existed for thousands of years. That is powerful. That is meaningful. I respect that. But Earth does not have those traditions. We do not breed warriors. We do not have ancestral weapons or ancient battle codes. What we have is something else. We have history. And our history taught us that survival requires adaptation. That strength is not about being the biggest or the fastest or the most aggressive. Strength is about being the one still standing when everything else has fallen." She looked across the faces watching her. She saw Thornek in the front row, saw Vexus and the other cadets she had rescued, saw hundreds of species that had once dismissed her. that now listened carefully to her words. I learned something here, Samira continued. From all of you. I learned that warrior traditions have value, that honor and courage and sacrifice mean something. But you taught me something else too. You taught me that traditions can evolve, that strength comes in many forms, that the best soldiers are not those who follow one path, but those who can walk many paths and choose the right one for the situation. Tomorrow some of us ship out for real combat. We might die. That is what soldiers risk. But we are not dying as humans or Vraxians or Kalhari or any single species. We are dying as soldiers of the Zenith Academy, trained to fight together, to think together, to win together. That is what makes us strong. Not our bloodlines or our traditions, but our choice to stand beside each other no matter what. The amphitheater was silent. Then Thornik stood. He raised his fist in a Vraxian salute. Vexus stood, adding a Kalhari gesture of respect. One by one, 3,000 cadets stood and saluted in the ways of their own species. It was chaotic and uncoordinated and absolutely perfect. The commandant joined Samira on stage. Well said, Cadet Chen, you have taught us much. Now go teach the galaxy. The deployment went smoothly, if anything involving combat could be called smooth. The border conflict was resolved within 3 weeks, though not without cost. 2 cadets from the rapid response team were killed. 5 more were seriously wounded. Samira took shrapnel from an improvised explosive and spent another week in medical suspension. But they won. The mission was successful. And the military analysts who watched the operation sent reports back to the Federation Council, describing the effectiveness of mixed-species units trained in adaptive tactics. More academies began implementing similar programs. Human tactical advisors were requested by a dozen different species. Earth's military was small compared to the great warrior nations. Humans were still soft by galactic standards, still unbred for war, still lacking the proud martial traditions of civilizations that had fought for millennia. None of that mattered anymore. Graduation day came with formal ceremonies and dress uniforms. Samira stood with her unit, waiting to receive their assignments. Thornik was being posted to a fleet command position. Vexus was joining special operations. Krell was going into military intelligence. Hexix was becoming an instructor. When the commandant called Samira's name, she stepped forward to receive her assignment datapad. He handed it to her with a slight smile. Your assignment is unusual, he said quietly so only she could hear. You are being posted back to Earth. The Federation wants you to help build a training facility there, to create more soldiers like you. Earth's military will grow and you will be part of shaping it. Samira looked at the datapad, then at the commandant. I thought I would be fighting. You will be. Just in a different way. Every soldier you train is a battle you win before it is fought. Earth asked why you breed no soldiers. Show them you do not need to breed them. Show them how choice can be stronger than blood. The ceremony ended. Graduates scattered to assignments across the galaxy. Samira found Thornik before he left for his fleet posting. I heard about your assignment, the Vraxian said. You are going home. For a while. I will probably be back out here eventually. When you return, bring more humans with you. Bring hundreds. Bring thousands. The galaxy needs soldiers who choose to fight. It needs soldiers who think as well as they strike. It needs more like you. You just want someone to keep you from charging straight at every enemy. That too. They clasped forearms in the human way. Then Thornik added a Vraxian salute. Stay safe, Samira Chen, and remember what you taught me. Strength comes from choice. From standing up when you could sit down. From fighting when you could run. From being a soldier not because you were born to it, but because you decided it mattered. I will remember. Samira watched him go, then made her way to the transport that would take her back to Earth. She thought about that first day in the amphitheater, when she had stood and said she was a soldier. She had believed it then, but in the abstract way someone believes something they have been told but not experienced. Now she knew it as truth, not because she was human, or because Earth had finally joined the galactic military community. She knew it because she had made the choice every day to be what soldiers were meant to. Be protectors, warriors, people who stood between danger and those who could not protect themselves. The transport lifted off, carrying her toward home and whatever came next. She did not know what the future held.